What is an amazing movie that has a god-awful sequel? American Psycho 2 didn't even start as a sequel, but they decided to make it one for a quick buck. Let's see Paul Allen's sequel. Oh my god. It even has a watermark. The Mask. In an interview about Son of the Mask, Jamie Kennedy, star of the movie, called it the crappiest piece of crap in the crap store. Took a look at his IMDb page. The bulk of his work is from projects that rated 5 stars or less. Oh god, we just watched Surf's Up 2 that was paid for by the WWE. My senior year of high school we had to make a TED talk about a subject of our choice. A close friend of mine gave a passionate speech about Surf's Up and how it deserved a better sequel. Gonna have to agree. Surf's Up recently entered my 4-year-old's movie rotation. Forgot it was an actual good movie. Glad I missed the sequel somehow. Mean Girls. They made a sequel. They, as in the people who made the original? Not really. It was a TV film, and the only cast member to return was Tim Meadows, who played the principal. This thread might as well be movies I didn't know had sequels. Independence Day. It's like they threw the sequel script together during a cheap cocaine bender. And what kills me about that is the fact that they had like 2 decades to come up with something good. Soon after the success of the first film, 20th Century Fox paid Dean Devlin a large sum of money to write a script for a sequel. However, after completing the script, Devlin didn't turn in the script and instead gave the money back to the studio, as he felt the story didn't live up to the first film. It was only approximately 15 years later that Devlin met up with Roland Emmerich to try again, having felt that they had cracked a story for a sequel. I wish it was better. Starship Troopers. Jarhead. Jarhead is a sad one. The original is based on a dude's memoirs, while the rest are generic support the troops action movies about militants storming an embassy or pilots being shot down. It's baffling that someone looked at a Sam Mendes movie about ennui during wartime and the psychological toll of the Gulf War and made generic, straight-to-video action sequels. There can't be a big audience overlap there. Speed. I think it was called The Bus. That couldn't slow down. It's like Speed 2, except on a bus instead of a boat. I loved The Mummy Return, but the third one was just horrible. Yes, the first 2 are so entertaining and cool with the Egyptian lore. The third one was like something Netflix would try to pull off. If they couldn't get Rachel Weisz, why not just kill her off between movies and write the new actress as someone else? I never got that. Have Eva's death and Rick's new relationship be the reason why he's estranged from his son. It would still overall suck as a movie, but at least it'd be better than having an actress who doesn't look, sound or act like Rachel Weisz pretend to be the same beloved character. Highlander. There should have only been one, right? They literally say that like a dozen times in the first. Luckily in my mind that's all there is. Dragonhead. There's like 4 or 5 of them now. Only the first movie is good. Good gravy. Just look them up. 3 had Ben Kingsley. 4th had Patrick Stewart. V had Helena Bonham Carter and came out last year. Pacific Rim. Oh my god. Came here to say this too. Loved the Og movie. The second one made no sense. The only bright spot is Charlie Day becoming the villain with his brain wife/sex slave. World War 1. Interesting. I think most people find the sequel even more compelling, but I can see how someone might appreciate the nuance and moral ambiguity of the original. By comparison, the sequel had a cardboard villain who was just plain evil. It was good guys vs bad guys, black and white with no shades of grey, except one of the good guys turned out to be Joe Stalin. I thought that was a fascinating twist, so I end up giving them both 5 stars. But what about the interesting subplots with the nuclear weapon development and the Nazi scientists? Just look at Project Paperclip. It's so compelling with the hypocrisy and risk taking, just to save their own hides and be more appreciated in the long run. Seriously though, it was horrible. How I got a wholesome award for talking about Nazi scientists I'll never know. Independence Day. 20 years we waited, and that's the best they got? Honorable mention to Pacific Rim. I worked at the VFX studio that did the majority of the effects for the sequel. It was a complete mess from start to finish. There was constant "wouldn't it be cool if" happening, meaning the film mutated into a strange parody of itself. You could tell. I said it earlier in the comments here, there's a sudden snap where it becomes Jeff Goldblum being Jeff Goldblum reacting to the dialogue. Mulan. Yes, WTF. I scrolled too long to find this one. Like, who the actual frick thought it was a good idea to make Mushu the villain? Come on. Okay, now I'm actually interested. Donnie Darko. Darko was trash. Donnie Darko was great. Not sure why they even thought of making a second film. It's not like some of the other movies on this list that were major hits, so it made fiscal sense to milk the hype. Donnie Darko was a more of a cult hit from what I gathered. I don't think it did well initially, but gained a following much later. Caddyshack. What is the best golf movie? Caddyshack. What is the worst golf movie? Caddyshack second. I don't claim credit. I remember that joke from the ESPN commercial bump for some golf tournament they were going to show. This was years ago. They were interviewing caddies from the PGA Tour, asking what the best movie about caddies ever made was. Ike. Jaws. Michael Caine on why he took a role in Jaws 4. I have never seen the film, but by all accounts it was terrible. However, I have seen the house that it built, and it is terrific. Sums up Jaws sequels. This reminds me of an interview with Anthony Hopkins on why he took the role in Mission Impossible 2. The hoops he jumped through to justify it as an interesting role, that he really did imagine he was actually Daniel Day-Lewis in that movie, when it was quite clear he knew he was taking a paycheck. He just didn't want to say something mean-spirited about people who paid him a lot of money. I like Hopkins' answer better. It may be less honest, but it's more kind. Roger Ebert once recounted how Rob Schneider sent him a kind note after his surgery and wrote, "Nobody starts out to make a bad movie." Titanic 2. Let that sink in. I see what you did there. Also, wait, they made a sequel? How? It's a cheap exploitation B movie, basically the same story on a remake of the Titanic in the present day. Joe Dirt and Zoolander. Those two were perfect early 2000s comedies and they did not need sequels, especially Joe Dirt, because that one was especially terrible. I didn't even know there was a sequel to Joe Dirt. Yes, it is called Joe Dirt 2, Beautiful Loser. Slapshot. The fact they even made that steaming pile of garbage of a sequel all those years later was insulting to the original. Just pretend Gooner's Slapshot 2, and you're good to go. 2 rules: stay away from my freaking Percocets. And do you have any freaking Percocets? Dumb and Dumber. Not for nothing, but there are few movies on earth that can make me laugh like Dumb and Dumber. Pull over. What? Pull over? No, it's a cardigan, but thanks for noticing. Gets me every time. If it hasn't been mentioned yet, they destroyed Disney's Atlantis with Atlantis 2. It was supposed to be a series Ike. They had 3 episodes done when it was canned, so they stuck them together and called it a movie. Which is sad, because I was like, I wanna see more adventures. Please. The Mask of Zorro, with Antonio Banderas, Catherine Zeta-Jones and Anthony Hopkins, is one of my favorite movies of all time. Literally top 5 for me. The follow-up, The Legend of Zorro, is one of my top 5 disappointments. I don't know why. I guess it's just like a paint-by-numbers rehash. All the excitement, the freshness, the adventure, the heart, it's all gone in the second one. It's like the actors and writers came back and said, alright, I guess we gotta do this again then. They made the same mistake most sequels with romance make. In the sequel, the romance is gone, and it's just an arguing couple with an annoying kid. The Land Before Time. Think there's like 15 sequels. Narratively, the first Land Before Time is leagues ahead of all the others. The latter movies have some great songs though. I still find myself singing Big Water decades later. Friends for Dinner. The Crow. I dunno. The Crows Have Eyes third. The Crowning was pretty good. Had to scroll way too far for this one. Dr. Clara Mandrake was delightfully unhinged. The Descent. To anyone wondering what made it so bad, I'll give you a little of the start of the movie. After the sole survivor from the first movie makes it out of the cave in the prequel, we start our sequel. She goes to the cops to tell them what happened in the cave. The 2 or 3 cops then take this traumatized woman and make her go with them back into said cave full of monsters. She didn't even actually make it out in the original. At least that's how I interpreted it. The Matrix. I'm not sure the others actually suck, but they are nowhere near as good as the original, and some of the answers they provided to cancel a bit of the wonder we were left with at the end of the first one. If you ever get a chance to see the fan edit of the second and third films called The Matrix Degenized, you might enjoy it. It has the feel and tone of the first one with a lot of the nonsense cut out. Highly recommended. Never seen it, but I'm guessing they pared those 5 hours of cinema down to something like 40-50 minutes. The Butterfly Effect. I feel like the directors of the sequels fell asleep watching the first movie and Final Destination and wake up mixing the two franchises, but not understanding none of them. The second one was really dumb, but I thoroughly enjoyed the third. It reinvented the premise enough, so it was still entertaining. Being able to jump back to other time frames, not just your own memories, was pretty great. The Blues Brothers. They never should have made a sequel, especially after Belushi passed. The music was good at least. I refused to go see BB2K when it came out simply because, beyond all the obvious factors, I viewed it as completely unnecessary. Well, earlier this year, for reasons I can't explain, I decided to watch it. It had some good tunes. It was nice to see the band back together, sans Belushi, but that was about it. It was pretty much a soft, knockoff, remake of the first one and completely unnecessary. Mulan, the animated Disney film. They released Mulan to straight to DVD, and it was honestly bad. All the straight to DVD Disney sequels, do they even count? Battle Royale. The first movie was an amazing piece of cinema. The second one sucked dead penguin assholes. I read the book and loved the first movie so much. The second one was severely disappointing. The Neverending Story. Insert obvious joke here. I liked the second one. The third, though Jack Blacktastic. Grease. Even White Gold hates the sequel. Grease 2 is deeply loved by people who were about 12 when it reran constantly on cable. I'm in this comment and I don't like it. There's been a few that really stood out to me. I first watched Marley. Pretty good. Then I saw Marley and Me, and it didn't make any sense. Is Bob Marley supposed to be reincarnated into the dog? Then you've got 28 Days, the movie with Sandra Bullock. I then watched the sequel, 28 Days Later, and man, things really got out of hand quick in the world in just another month. I think they could done a better job explaining just how Sandra Bullock's character going into rehab led to a zombie apocalypse. The weirdest trilogy is Remember the Titans, Clash of the Titans, and Revenge of the Titans. Then almost 10 years later they made a show just called Titans. Super confusing. Not to mention Teen Titans. How does that show fit in with the rest? Not immediate sequels, but can't imagine Beethoven 3 or Home Alone 3 onward were any good. I've never seen Home Alone 3, but have heard that it's not bad if you consider it as a standalone movie in a different universe rather than a sequel. I actually quite liked it. You just gotta think of it as its own. The SpongeBob Movie, SM1. SpongeBob and Patrick set out on a road trip adventure, not realizing that the fate of Bikini Bottom lies in their hands as Plankton's most ingenious plan unfolds. SM2. Not Painty the pirate steals the secret formula and SpongeBob can't make the patty from memory for some dumb reason. So they journey to the surface for like 10 minutes after SpongeBob and Plankton go on a meaningless acid trip to fill up the feature time. SM3. Okay fans, we'll give you a road trip adventure, but not without shoehorning this stupid spin-off preview that doesn't make sense. The first SpongeBob movie is a masterpiece. The second one isn't as amazing narratively, but I laugh my head off every time I watch it and think it stands up just as well as the first one. But the third one was just a promo for Camp Coral. I thought the second one wasn't as good as a cohesive story and didn't really have a message, but it had a lot of great silly moments. Bikini Bottom instantly devolving into Mad Maximum in the absence of Krabby Patties and SpongeBob being left to supervise the universe while the dolphin goes to the bathroom were kind of hilarious. The whole superhero bit was too much though. Sin City. I don't think the second one was even rated R. The second one was basically just fan service for boys who wanted to see Eva Green's tits. It reminded me of the movie Swordfish, which existed only to give us Halle Berry's brief topless scene. Funny, that's the same reason 300 got a sequel. Speed. Explains why Keanu opted out after seeing script. This makes me feel hopeful about Resurrections. Surprise nobody said Cars. Cars 2 should been a separate movie and Cars 3 should been Cars 2. Cars 2 should been Tomato 1. Highlander. Got my buddies to go see it in the theater. We all agreed to walk out halfway through. Embarrassing trying to explain to them how good the first one was. They were like, yeah right, lunch is on you bish. The Exorcist 2 is sham of movie. It was just so goofy to be the sequel to one of the greatest horror movies of all time. The third one is absolutely incredible though. Hell yes it is. It's got freaking Brad Dourif and George C. Scott screaming at one another. Despicable Me. Look, I know everyone is scarred by the Minions at this point, but the first movie had genuine heart and emotion to it, and was a solid look at Elaine unexpectedly becoming a father, and figuring out how to be a single dad. And the Minions back then were an amusing comedic relief that, while goofy, weren't too over the top. And then the second movie just fell into a really disappointing trope of little girls need a mother, cause frick all the single dads who don't have, or want that option, and gay fathers right. Also Gru is reformed now, which takes away so much of the nuance of it. And then from there the following movies all devolved into Minion shenanigans, and lost all semblance of charm it originally had. I got super high to watch the Minions movie, and still thought it was terrible. Kingsman, The Secret Service. The sequel was so bad it infuriated me. I feel like they were constantly trying to live up to the church scene, and failed every time. Grease. Michelle Pfeiffer singing Cool Rider straddling a ladder is a foundational image of my puberty. Boondock Saints is excellent. The second one is terrible. It's like they just tried to remake the first one using some different people. It was terrible. But it was like they didn't actually watch or like the first one. They missed absolutely every mark the first film hit. They were just like vigilantes killing criminals, and a weird cop person reenacts the crimes while trying to find them. How hard can that be? Then they wrote the movie in 30 minutes while high. Hey, we can't get Daffo. Let's get a hot chick instead. Yeah. Then during the flashbacks, we can put her in different sexy outfits for no reason at all. OMG. That would be great. But let's have her do a really crappy southern accent the whole movie, because frick your ears. This is awesome. How about we end on one of those montages, where a guy continuously walks towards the camera saying a bunch of crap, to get people super psyched up. Sounds sweet, but what should he say? It doesn't really matter. I'll jot some notes down. I gotta take a crap. Phantom of the Opera. Like technically it's not a movie, but Love Never Dies sucks. Oh dear god. I read the synopsis for that, and it feels like a self-insert fanfiction. That's because it is fanfiction. If you've read the book, the Phantom dies at the end of it. Every single Terminator movie after T2. The people that made Genesis and Dark Fate should be charged with a crime. T3 isn't great but it's watchable. I saw Salvation about 6 months ago and thought it did a good job at portraying what it needed to. Definitely not comparable to T2, but underrated nonetheless. T3's ending saves it. It was a bold choice, though it does piss all over T2's message that the future isn't written. Christmas Vacation. Yes, I know Christmas Vacation is a sequel, but the sequel to the sequel is so awful. Very true. They were trying to capitalize on Cousin Eddie. He's not a main character, a tremendous side buffoon. But no Clark Griswold. I always liked Vegas Vacation. The Lord of the Rings. The Two Towers was great. I'm talking about the Hobbit trilogy, which I know wasn't a sequel so much as a separate story that occurred before the War of the Ring, but holy crap was the Hobbit trilogy hot garbage. It shouldn't have been 3 films. The story was stretched like butter spread over too much bread. Amen to that. They made a trilogy out of a book half as long as the Fellowship of the Ring. Chinatown. The Two Jakes just isn't good. The Strangers. I really liked the first one, but the sequel was badly acted, scripted, and edited. The sequel is such a weird movie, but the whole tension of the first movie was the people being trapped in the house, with the strangers coming and going as they pleased. By shifting the sequel to a trailer park, it just devolved into a standard slasher flick. Eddie and the Cruisers was very good. Not amazing. Eddie and the Cruisers second. Eddie Lives was an embarrassment. Some of the worst acting ever. Saturday Night Fever was great. Staying Alive was an embarrassment. Some of the worst acting ever. Hot Tub Time Machine was really fun, but the second was a horrible cash grab. Jurassic Park was an incredible standalone movie. Every sequel is just the exact same plot. Cool park, big dinosaur breakout, park fall, but with more CGI. Lol, not exactly. 2 was alright, we had them on a second island too. And let's bring 1 to the mainland, because that will for sure have a happy ending. 3 was alright, tourists don't go near that island for a reason. 4 was the new park thing. But 5 was let's bring the dinners to the mainland again, because we've learned nothing, and that will for sure have a happy ending. Taken. At what point do you just forget about your relatives that keep getting kidnapped? This summer, one man, one cousin, of his best friend's sister's dentist's hairdresser once removed, with Liam Neeson, in Taken 19 number. Coming to America. Loved that movie with all my heart. When I heard there would be a second with most of the original cast I was stoked. Then they used the most cliche racism bits and music video sequences. I turned it off like 20 minutes in. Ocean's 11 is the original. Then Ocean's 12. Stay the heck away from Julia Roberts pretending to be Julia Roberts, but is actually a different character, because someone thought she looked similar. I was furious at this film for this, and so many more decisions. But Ocean's 13 is cool. LMAO, I dunno man. That's peak cinema to me. It's so stupid that I can't believe it made it into the movie. I always thought of it as a funny meta joke. It's hilarious that they're like you look nothing like her and then they get caught. I thought it was perfect. Like in 11 when Clooney and Pitt walk out of the poker game and all of the paparazzi are focused on B-list celebrities. The Ocean's movies are full of star-studded casts and I love it when they play it off for comedy. The Hangover. What's even more funny about this is, when they released the movie in Poland, they named it Kak Vegas, because kak literally means hangover in Polish, and it's a pun. Because it's similar to Las Vegas. Get it? Even the translators didn't expect a sequel. But then, oh, here it comes. The sequel has arrived, and it has nothing to do with Las Vegas. The name's just The Hangover Part 2nd. So guess what they did? They just translated it to Kak Vegas W Bangkoku Hangover Vegas in Bangkok, and called it a day. Then the third movie happened, and they just didn't bother and called it Kak Vegas 3. It's somehow fortunate, as if I remember correctly it actually featured Las Vegas, but I didn't watch it, so I can't say for sure. Movie title translators work in mysterious ways. Die Hard with a Vengeance in Denmark is called Die Hard, Mega Hard, not in Danish, in English. No idea why. It's not even translated, it's just something else. Aliens, which itself is an amazing sequel, was followed by Alien 3, which is truly terrible. Except for the opening it's really not that terrible, but it is hard to forgive them just throwing away 2 characters like that. The Lion King. Anyone ever seen Lion King 1 and 1/2? I always thought that one was pretty cute. It's also a completely different tone from the original, so not really comparable. Lion King is Hamlet. Lion King 2 is Romeo and Juliet. Lion King 1 and 1/2 is Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead. Rocky Horror Picture Show. Most people don't even know about shock treatment, and it's horrible. In shock treatment's defense, there was supposed to be a trilogy planned instead. Rocky Horror Shows His Heels was to feature Brad and Janet after the events of the first one, with Rocky now with Janet, who's pregnant with Frank's baby, and Brad becomes a go-go dancer with his newfound sexual awakening and dies of an STD. Then the third movie, Revenge of the Old Queen, was Riff Raff and Magenta returned home to Transylvania to report back to the Old Queen. She's actually Frank's mother, and charges those two with finding Frank's killer. The scripts are out there somewhere, and there was even a rare promo song leaked from the third one. That's a banger, The Moon-Drenched Shores of Transylvania, for those curious. But then production hell kicked in. Susan Sarandon wanted more money to return, which was too rich for them at the time, and the half measure that came out of things ended up being shock treatment. Fun fact, Clifty Young, Brad/Farley cast in Street, was supposed to be Brad in the first one, but was double booked with another movie, so we got the original Brad we did. It's not the greatest sequel, it has obvious ploys to capitalize on what hit in the first movie, Little Black Dress being a time warp stand-in for instance, but for what it became I still find things to enjoy from a Brian script. Little bits of dialogue still ends up mattering through the movie, and a few songs are catchy. Bishin in the Kitchen, Me of Me, shock treatment. Star Wars, Return of the Jedi has 3 god-awful sequels. In my opinion, Force Awakens, good despite being a rehash of A New Hope. Last Jedi, mediocre at best. Rise of Skywalker, a crap writing fest.